Technology changes so fast that it's hard to know if something in development will even make it into production by virtue of it being preemptively obsoleted by another emerging technology. But consider the advent of solid-state batteries and how promising they are in terms of charge time and the range they could grant. Some Googling reveals that it's believed that these batteries can give a car a 600-mile range and have 1,000 recharges in them, and that they can charge in a fraction of the time of the current technology, like a 10-minute recharge to get 600 miles. Theoretically, an electric car should be extremely low maintenance, but it's likely that manufacturers would find a way to insert breakage points so that not everybody is getting 600,000 miles out of their car, but we can always hope. These batteries require a fair amount of silver, about a kilogram. The world production of cars is about 93 million units per year. So let's say that 10% of the world's car production moves to cars that use the solid-state batteries. If the performance is as the internet declares, a 10% move would be a conservative estimate, as the economic case is extremely compelling. At 1 kilogram of silver per unit, accounting for 10% of world car production, 1 year's production would increase world usage by just over 25%. And world usage already outstrips production. So usage every year is already dipping into total above ground supply, which is about 1.6 million metric tons. So in a scenario where 93 million cars per year are being made with solid-state battery technology, that right there is 5% of total above ground supply. So total above ground supply, including like hoarders stacks and like people's silverware and stuff, could be gone in easily less than 20 years. And it could be a lot less, because we need to take into account the full scope of applications. This battery technology will be power efficient enough to allow for drones that can carry people over a pre-programmed parabola, like Jetsons type stuff, but with drones that use super efficient batteries. And then there's computer power enough to calculate all those vectors of these taxis to make sure that they don't collide at any time. So you could theoretically be using an automated drone taxi. The technology exists already to do this, but it will likely require a huge increase in the consumption of silver. The internet says that there are 17.5 to 20 ounces of silver in the Earth's crust per ounce of gold, and yet the gold to silver ratio in terms of dollars per ounce has been hovering around 100 at the time of this recording. One possible reason for this is that when people buy their silver through ETFs, the shorting of that ETF can create a situation where there are multiple paper claims on each real ounce of silver, assuming that that ETF actually has vaulted silver. But this shorting is basically absorbing up the investment demand without putting real pressure on the price, because it's not putting pressure on the real supply of silver. Silver's price responds to actual usage versus just speculative investment. And I suppose if people, stacked, hoarded their silver, that would also impact the price to the extent that it's taken out of the market. But much of the investment demand gets kind of sopped up by this rehypothecation. So in short, I'm saying that silver is shorted all to hell. The thing about the scenario that I describe above is that this will put real demand on silver. There will be no way to manipulate the price when the metal is being exhausted through industrial use. So even without the huge short in silver, without that, the increase in demand from the confluence of AI, robotics, and battery technology could increase the demand for silver multiple times over. But at the outset, when the tide of industrial demand starts to come in, there's going to be possibly a massive short squeeze at some point, unless the bullion banks can somehow unwind their shorts before there's a real problem for them. For as long as I've been alive, silver has just been only a semi-precious metal in my mind. But the price of any commodity is really simple supply and demand. There'll be a huge need to recycle silver in the future. An increasing silver price will support efforts to do that, but it's clear that without them, we're going to run out of silver. So, whatever doomsday scenario people want to paint about AI and it replacing like robots and everything, yeah, that's theoretically possible, like with unlimited resources. But I just talked about one resource, silver, and it could become unobtainium in a world where there's many humanoid robots as there are people, or I don't know what the ratio would be, but there's so many people that and especially with people aging out, the assistance that those robots could provide would be extremely useful. So, the demand on that one commodity could really make like silver the new gold. I mean, that sounds crazy, but if you look back at history and try to put yourself in the shoes of someone who lived before these events happened, if you just tried to tell them what the exact future was going to hold, they'd call you crazy. Like, I don't know, way back when somebody I worked with told everybody at a presentation to buy Bitcoin. And like, if I had done that, I mean, gosh, I obviously I didn't, but who could have known? I mean, so I don't know. I think the technology, the inflection point that we're on, could really increase the demand of silver, like relative to its supply, to a point where the price could really explode for it. We just are so conditioned to see this relationship between silver and gold. We just take it for granted. But historically, the gold to silver ratio has been considerably lower than it is now. And like I said, the actual supply it's like a 17.5 to 20 fold difference. So there's a huge differential. So this is not investment advice, obviously. I'm just giving you my thesis on what I think is going to happen with technology and potential limiting factors, things to consider in terms of resources.